Hey guys, I'm just going to do a help session on Attack of the Zombie Ants. If you are stuck, if you need help, I'm going to go over that. Right now, I'm going to go through the article with you. So I'm going to present my screen. Here we go. Okay. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. So let's go to Attack of the Zombie Ants. Okay, so make sure you read the article before you do any of my assignments. So just going through the article, if you were confused, I want you to make sure you read it first before you watch this video, because I'm just going to be going really fast through it. I'm not going to read the whole article for you because then the video would be like 2 hours long. So when we say zombie ants, you can see, actually, I put it in the activity or the instructions up here. I actually attached like videos of like all these different types of zombie like creatures. When we say zombie, we don't mean like in this assignment, we don't mean like they're dead and they're rising from the grave because of some weird like voodoo. What we mean is like actually in science, in nature, there's a fungi that is they're called cordyceps, and they basically control the brain of whatever they infect. So if you watch these videos, you can see, zombie parasites in nature. Okay. So going through the article, cordyceps, if they infect an ant, right, the spores attach to the ant and eventually they grow all over the ant. They burrow inside of the ant and they infect the ant's brain, eventually making the ant like freeze in place. And then eventually it just covers the whole ant in spores, and it's really gross. There's one giant spore that like pops out of its head and it looks like a unicorn. And then that spore explodes on everything else around it. It's funny because these ants like know when an ant is being zombified, and they will like straight up yeet the ant like into quarantine. It's in one of these videos. They'll be like, "Oh, that ant's a zombie." Whew! They just throw it away. Okay. So that's what the beginning of this article is about. In order to grow and spread, this fungus must hijack an ant's brain. However weird this might seem, it isn't all that unusual. So there's zombie spiders and cockroaches. If the fungus affects it, they're called cordyceps, but there's all these different types of cordyceps, all these different types of zombie fungi. If it infects a spider and a cockroach, they make them babysit wasp larvae until the babies devour them. Zombie fish flip around and dart toward the surface of the water, seeming to beg for birds to eat them. And the reason why the fish, these worms, infect this fish and they crawl up into its brain, it makes the fish flop out of water, and then the birds eat them. And the reason why the worms want the birds to eat them is because the worms thrive inside the bird, not inside the fish. It's all about survival. That's key to understanding this article. Zombie crickets, beetles, and praying mantises drown themselves in water. Zombie rats are drawn to the smell of pee of cats that may devour them. I know, it's nasty. So all of these zombies have one thing in common: parasites. Okay. When we're talking about a parasite, we're talking about an organism that thrives off of another organism, right? It's making the other organism do the work. So all of this zombie fungi is just a parasite. Okay. So they're not all the same. Every parasite has its own method, but the process usually involves altering chemicals within the victim's brain. Researchers are working hard to identify which chemicals are involved and how they end up so bizarrely altering their host behavior. Again, that's important to understanding this. Like, you're going to be answering a question later on, like, okay, well, why would humans want to know about how the brain can be affected by fungi? And could it be a good thing? Okay. So this part right here is talking about just different types of fungi, different types of single-celled organisms that are so advanced. I mean, a single-celled organism doesn't have a brain like you or me, but somehow it knows how to still control the brains of larger and smarter animals. So even though it's a single-celled organism, it winds up taking control of something that's much more powerful. So that's pretty cool. So, for example, this one right here, it's a not toxoplasma gondii, is a single-celled creature that can only complete its life cycle inside of a cat. But first, this parasite must live for a time in a different animal, such as a rat. To ensure this part-time host gets eaten by a cat, the parasite turns rats into cat-loving zombies. So basically, this parasite needs to live inside of a cat, but it needs to make sure that the cat eats whatever it's living inside of, so it'll go infect a rat. I mean, that's nasty. Okay. Continuing with the article, they're looking at how it can be infecting the brain, right? Now, this is important because as it goes on, we're talking about wasps. We're talking about the jewel wasp. That's the one that like makes the cockroach babysit the larvae, and then the larvae are like, yum. When they hatch, like the larvae eat the cockroach. It's like a, like Attack of the Babysitter. So the article goes on. It talks about brain worms. That's the fish, the worm that infects the fish, and then the fish flops up to the shore, and then the birds eat it. And we're talking about chemistry in the brain. So this is the important part before we start the questions. It's as if the fish notices the hunting bird doesn't get freaked out as it should. We need to do further studies to confirm this is true, says Weinersmith. Her group plans to analyze the chemicals in the brains of infected fish, then try to recreate the zombie effect in normal fish. So this is the important part of the article right here, the very end. You're going to have questions about this part. Success won't come easily. Zombie mind control is a complicated matter. Parasites have developed their control of other creatures' brains for over millions of years of evolution. Scientists have found fossil evidence of fungus-controlled ants dating back 48 million years. Over this long period, she says, the fungus learned a lot more about how the ant's brain works than the human scientists have. So what you need to understand before you do these questions is that we actually, like neuroscientists, we don't actually know that much about the human brain. I mean, if you did the assignment about the haunted asylum, mental health, I mean, straight up, not even less than 100 years ago, people thought it was cool and okay to just like shove a pickaxe in your eyeball and swirl around your frontal lobe. They're like, that'll be fine. That's science. We don't really know that much about the human brain. But if we can figure out how fungus is controlling the chemistry in the brain, maybe we can do some good. I mean, think about it. Not everyone's brain is a safe place. You know what I'm saying? Like people who are mentally ill, people who want to hurt themselves, right? People who want to hurt others. If we could figure out a way to help them using this fungus, not saying we want to take over their brain and, like eat their brain cells. But if we could figure out a way to help them, help their brain calm down, then, we'll have done something good. So let's start this assignment. Okay. Which statement best expresses the central idea of the text? Central idea meaning what is this all about? Which one of these sentences just best expresses what this article is all about? So, the ability for parasites to understand the minds of other organisms has disproved the notion that single-celled organisms are unintelligent. After studying the abilities of mind-controlling parasites, scientists suspect that parasites might be able to similarly affect humans. Parasites can control the actions of their host by altering the chemistry of their brains, forcing them to help the parasites and their young survive. Or, while it has been confirmed that some parasites can control the actions of their hosts, how they do so largely remains a mystery to scientists. All of these sentences were in the article, but only one of them is like, that's what the article is all about. What was this article all about? It was about all of the different types of parasites that can control the chemistry of their hosts' brains, and it's all about survival. Therefore, this one is the correct answer. Parasites can control the actions of their host by altering the chemistry of their brains. 2. Which detail from the text best supports the idea that parasites can make zombie animals? Every parasite has its own method, but the process usually involves altering chemicals within the victim's brain. They end up so bizarrely altering their host behavior. It will take more work to learn how the parasite's chemicals lead to zombie behavior in ants. We are very much in the beginning of trying to figure this out, says De Becker. Eventually, this work could lead to new medicines or therapies for human brains. We just have to hope that a mad scientist won't go out and start making human zombies. Over this long period, she says, the fungus learned a lot about how the ant's brain works than the human scientists have. So, good test-taking strategy, process of elimination, okay? The question is asking you about the idea that all parasites, all of these parasites can make zombie animals. So anything that has to do with ants, I mean, we talked about birds, we talked about fish, we talked about cockroaches, we talked about wasps, we talked about all kinds of nasty creatures. All right. So these two they're not correct because that's just the ants, right? This one's talking about human brains. That's not what the question is asking. Therefore, by process of elimination, this is the correct answer. Every parasite has its own method, but the process usually involves altering chemicals within the victim's brain, and then they alter their host behavior. 3, how does paragraph 3 contribute to the development of ideas in the text? It reveals why scientists, all right, so let's just go look at paragraph 3 again. Here we go. By the way, if you click this, you can pull up the article. I don't know if y'all knew that. Hopefully you did. All right, so paragraph 3, just going back, check it out. In order to grow and spread, this fungus must hijack an ant's brain. However weird this might seem, it isn't all that unusual. The natural world is full of zombies under my control. And then the rest of this paragraph is like spiders, cockroaches, fish, crickets, beetles. Look at all these different types of zombie animals, okay? So knowing that, it reveals why scientists are interested in studying organisms that can be turned into zombies by parasites. We didn't talk about scientists, so no. It shows how real-life zombies differ from the zombies we are used to seeing on television. We didn't talk about TV. We didn't talk about The Walking Dead. So no. It emphasizes how many different types of organisms that can be turned into zombies by parasites. That seems like a good answer, but let's read the last one just to be sure. It reveals how parasites can take control of organisms' minds and turn them into their personal zombies so that they can take over the world someday. So both of these seem kind of similar. They both seem kind of right, but look, so that they can take over the world someday. That was not in the article. We're not talking about cockroaches taking over the world. That would be disgusting. We're just talking about why all the different types of organisms that can be turned into zombies. It's all about survival. It's not about world domination. 4, which statement best describes the relationship between parasites' use of mind control and their survival? Mind control, survival. Those are the key words in this question. Parasites are lazy creatures and prefer to force other organisms to help them survive rather than to survive on their own. Hey, just another test-taking skill. If you see biased language like lazy or evil or stupid, that usually means that the answer is wrong, okay? When you're taking the ACT and the SAT, you're never going to see anything like this, okay? So this is the wrong answer just because, like, were the parasites lazy creatures? No, man, that fungus is doing work, all right? It's like popping out of that ant's skull. It's doing work. It's not lazy. Parasites are helpless and wouldn't be able to survive on their own if they couldn't control larger organisms. This is a close answer, right? But I mean, are they really helpless? They didn't necessarily say that. I mean, they could take over anything they wanted to. Parasites control other organisms to provide them with the ideal circumstances to survive and reproduce. This one seems pretty good. Last one. Parasites are intelligent creatures but physically weak and force other organisms to lend their strength to protect them. Protection wasn't what it was about, right? That worm wanted the fish to flop on to shore because the worm thrives inside of a bird, right? So that's the ideal circumstances to survive and reproduce. It's all about like, hey, I gotta, bake my babies. What's the best oven, right? It's kind of a gross way of referring to it. Sorry, but this whole article is gross. I hope y'all, people who like gross, nasty nature stuff, enjoyed it. So last one, how can studying the actions of mind-controlling parasites help scientists better understand the human brain? Okay, if you get stuck, focus on the last section of the article. This is why I said, and hey, make sure it's 5 sentences, okay? And include examples from the text. Here's what I want you to focus, okay? The last part of the article, right down here. Oh, here we go, okay. So, oh my gosh, technology. I need a parasite to infect my brain so I can do all this work. Okay, but scientists are starting to catch up. Now we can ask the parasites what they've learned. Ant brains may be much simpler than human brains, but the chemistry going on inside them isn't all that different. Figuring out the secrets of zombie mind control in bugs could help neuroscientists understand more about the links between the brain and behavior in people. Eventually, this work could lead to new medicines or therapies for human brains. We just have to hope that a mad scientist won't go out and start making human zombies. So in this example, this part right here is what's important, okay? The fact that we don't know a lot about the human brain. Up until the 30s, we thought, or really up until the 50s, we thought it was okay to give a lobotomy to someone, which is just messing up the whole front part of their brain, giving someone brain damage. We were like, that'll be fine. That'll make them calm down. We don't know anything about what causes the chemical imbalance that makes one person bipolar and one person manic depressive, right? But if we could figure that out, if we could study this, what's going on naturally, we might be able to help people with actual problems in the chemistry of their brain. Okay. So if you give me 5 sentences about that, make sure you include examples from the text. This part right here, you can copy and paste any of these sentences in as your example, then you will be good. So hopefully that is all you need to know. Let me know if you have any questions. You can always email me, and I'll see you later. Deuces.